We're going to go ahead and kick off the winner's circle with Grand Prix Chicago, which was the modern format and happened 2 weeks ago. Jacob Wilson and Josh Utter-Layton took down the tournament double finals. Jacob Wilson on top, both playing nearly identical Genless, Splashing White for Lingering Souls. Is this the new face of that deck?
Yeah, it is. Lingering Souls is really well positioned right now with the robots that I still call Affinity. I'm sorry, I just have to do it. Can't call it robots. And Infect. It's also very good in the mirror match, where Kitchen Finks is still fine, but being able to discard it to the Liliana, as well as like blocking Bobs and threatening to like trade half of a card for half of Bloodbright Elf, the card just works really well at doing this. So it's very good there, but the one thing that you'd think you'd lose by splashing another color and playing Lingering Souls in like the combo matchups is that slot never gets used anyways.
Okay.
It's like a Kitchen Finks or something like that. That isn't good at interacting with an opponent anyway. So Lingering Souls right now is well positioned, and it'll take the whole format getting less aggressive, more combo before that slot changes again.
All right, well, diving right back into the Star City series, we had SCG Dallas, which was won by Shane Ramelt on Blue-White Flash and Joe Bass on Blue-White Miracles. Double victories for the Blue-White lands. I imagine that suited Jerry just fine.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the Blue-White lands and those decks doing well and stuff. So Flash is still going to be a good deck. Like the deck that Shane played is a couple weeks old, but I mean that makes sense since it was a couple weeks ago. But like people have Cavern of Souls now. There's more aggressive decks. There's like Green-White and Mono Red. They're both pretty big. So you probably need some Supreme Verdicts. You probably want a second Sphinx's Revelation main deck.
There's hoof decks too.
I don't know what that means. But I think the Flash deck is still going to be good. You just have to adapt it a little bit.
Sure, sure. Also in the Legacy Open top 8 at Dallas, we had a couple of High Tide decks, which paved the way for SCG Seattle quite nicely. Feline Longmore won the Legacy Open with High Tide, a deck Jerry is also familiar with. But we're going to start with the Bant Control deck that Jacob Thiessen took down the Standard Open with.
I don't like Band Control right now. I don't think it's well positioned, but I love the Alchemist Refuge. I've never gotten to play it. It seems like a great land to just have. Like if you have access to that, the fear of whatever you can do with it in the Flash matchups seems amazing. Just being able to like end a turn Jace, main phase Jace, and like stop them from countering both of them. Weird things in the late game. But for the most part, I'm not a fan of Bant right now. That information wasn't known until this last weekend, so anyone that saw this result, I think it was good that weekend, but things are changing. The Behemoth deck that, spoiler, we'll get to, I would like to talk about that today. But and a couple other things, the aggressive haste decks that came out of other tournaments. So the deck is sweet. I like the numbers, especially the Celestine Charms main deck, just being able to deal with Angel Serenities. Especially on the stack if they're trying to get cards from the graveyard. But moving forward, I'm not a fan of the deck.
Okay. Moving back to High Tide, are you surprised by High Tide's strong performances over 2 weekends in Legacy?
No, I don't think so. Like the format has basically been slowing down a little bit. Like Show and Tell hasn't really been around too much.
That's true.
No one really plays Storm in the U.S. There's very, very few good, like dedicated Storm players. So that's also a positive. And if people are playing like these Stoneforge Mystic decks, then High Tide is just going to run over them. So it's no surprise to me. But obviously, 2 weekends after it does well, like maybe that's not going to be the case anymore. But.
Sure. Definitely cause for concern. Returning to the standard format, which is pretty wide open as we've all seen, but Grand Prix Charleston and Grand Prix Bochum were both this past weekend. You guys were in Charleston.
Yep.
And I guess let's just dive right in. Jerry, you top 8 of the tournament, although you did not win.
No, I got to top 8, and I was looking around at the other 7 people, and I was like, all these decks are basically bad matchups. So probably not going to be the Grand Prix where I get my 3rd trophy. And sure enough, I was just quickly knocked out in top 8 by a Black-Red Zombie deck. My opponent, Matt Keane, went on to lose to John Bolding, playing basically another Black-Red Zombie deck. Very, very interesting list. Like lots of big haste guys. Like Brad said, like Band Control, probably a very easy matchup for this deck. Because even if you gain life, like 5 life from Thragtusk, they're just gonna, hit you back for 8 or whatever. So it doesn't actually do that much. So I mean, I definitely like John's deck, and I think that Zombies is pretty poised for a comeback, or it was last weekend. Like now, people might be moving to Pillar of Flame again, but it seems very good.
Yeah, that makes sense. As for you, Brad, you had a top 16 finish in Charleston, playing Hoof, there it is, or Rihanna
That's not
Crater.
bad, Brad. Top 16,
top 16 is not bad, but
bad.
Your friend Martin Yuza managed to 1-up you at Grand Prix Bochum,
Yes,
or
he did.
15-up you, I guess, with a win, playing almost identical to your list, I think. You guys had some slight differences for the metagame, so we're just going to dive right into that list, as that's going to be the breakdown. So this week's breakdown is definitely going to be on Brad's brainchild that Martin Yuza managed to take to a win at the Grand Prix. I prefer Rihanna Crater. I know Hoof There It Is.
No, I thought of Hoof There It Is, mostly because I would cast the card and go, Hoof There It Is.
All right.
But Rihanna Crater is like the best name ever.
Okay, so I was in 3rd grade when that song came out, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people aren't gonna know. So you can feel free to tell them.
It's a song.
It is a reference to a song, in fact. But let's dive into the deck, because developing the nickname was, I'm sure, entertaining. But this deck has to have a little bit of a story. So where did you start building this? I don't even know if I want to call it necessarily like a new take on Reanimator, because it's very different.
So it's kind of a funny story. There'll be more of it in my article that goes up today as well. But I 1-2'd the PTQ, and my only win was a bye, and I was life tilting, completely left till on my drive home. And I've always wanted to build a Crater Hoof deck because I really thought it was going to be good in the format. But the last time I played Standard was in Cincinnati before the Pro Tour, where I didn't get much time to test it, and everyone was playing pillars, and that was like a very pillar-heavy metagame, so I couldn't really build this. But now the metagame's shifted, and I think you can just definitely hoof people. So the first version of the deck might have had Gravecrawler. It was Faithless Looting, Lot Latrell, Gravecrawler, Mulch, Grizzly Salvage, Lingering Souls. It was very black-green with a splash of white for half of Lingering Souls and Unburial Rites.
Okay.
I had Faithless Looting, I had Deathrite Shaman, Absence Pilgrim. And it was cool. It was definitely fun to go Gravecrawler into Mulch and just, get whatever the opponent said to you. And the original deck didn't work. The cards didn't work.
Sure.
But the strategy was there. I could just tell the strategy existed of getting the 5 turns that almost every deck gives you, and no one's interacting with you because they're not running these cheap removal spells. They're running cards that beat Thragtusk. Well, removal doesn't beat Thragtusk. More card advantage does. So they're playing these long games, and I'm just going to deal them 40 damage on turn 5 or 6. And the strategy just kept working. I kept working on the deck, and then I hit this roadblock where Lot Latrell just wasn't cutting anymore. It was good at discarding Crater Hoof. It was good at discarding other things, but it just didn't help me with the sideboard plan. Hate was really good against me, and I was just scouring Moto, and then I saw it, and I forgot about it, and I saw Somberwald Sage, and you have never seen someone so excited about cardboard in their life. I was like jumping up and down, and ever since Somberwald Sage, the deck just started flowing, and everything worked out, and all the strategies worked out, and everything just came together, and I don't know, it was like by far my favorite tournament I've ever played in. I had so much fun in Charleston. It wasn't even close. I was doing something no one else even came close to doing. Sphinx's Revelation for 14 just didn't matter. For 13 mana, my opponent just draws 10 cards. And I'm just like, that's fine. I'm going to kill you now.
Sure. Well, I remember you messaging me on Facebook just elated with this deck list. I broke it. I can't wait to just tell somebody. It was like 2 a.m. or something, too.
Yeah. You were probably the only one on his phone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
Fully believe. And one of the things that most interested me about the list was the sideboard. Would it be appropriate to call this a transformational sideboard?
You could look at it like that, and that's definitely how I started playing the deck. I definitely wanted the deck to transform into something else. But as I played the deck, the thing that I understood is I'm not trying to interact with my opponent in any game. So I'm trying to do the most powerful thing possible. Every deck is so good at fighting fair. My deck can't do that. I can't go toe-to-toe with Angel Serenity against Angel Serenity. I can't go toe-to-toe with Thragtusk versus Thragtusk. But what I can do is I can go over the top of everyone. So Thragtusk is good in the matchups where Thragtusk is good against. Angel Serenity is good against the matchups that just fold to it. And like Smiters and Restoration Angels come in with Thragtusk against the aggressive decks and the control decks because those cards are just good in both matchups.
Sure.
So Zombies has a tough time with Smiter just like blue-white control decks do. And these cards are doing something different. And that's really what the sideboard does is it transforms into a deck that's still unfair against what they're trying to do to me. Sometimes it's higher variance, sometimes it's lower variance. But I'm never trying to go toe-to-toe with any opponent. I'm always trying to do something different and something better. And so, I mean, you could call it a transformational sideboard, but it's pretty much just they're now fighting the strategy I have, so I want to go over the top with something else.
Sure. Well, that's definitely a strong exercise in repositioning for you kids at home. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the red zone.